Hello and welcome to another Connecting Consciousness. We are doing this a bit later than normal, but it'll still be live and ready to go for the Sunday. So thank you very much indeed for listening, and thank you very much for continuing to listen and to follow the website and to do your own research from that. So the major points I think really want to look at are the strange number of poisonings that have been reported on aircraft. These are sort of transnational or international flights, and England has been quite a locale for this, either going from England to another country or coming back, particularly one I think from Britain to Spain or Spain to Britain. There was one from Africa, and sort of during the flight these passengers are reporting that they've been taken ill, and the pilots radioing the country of destination, and the police and the ambulances are all standing by. There's been a lot of debate whether it's actually real or whether this is all just complete fake news. It is real. My information is that it's real. The thinking that seems to be going around as these are crisis actors, I'm not being told that. I'm being told that people are being genuinely poisoned, but with a very low level. It's like a sort of a food poisoning. It's not a evil virus or something that's going to spread a pandemic and kill everybody, but people genuinely are getting some form of poisoning which lasts for just 2 or 3 hours and goes. It doesn't preclude actors being mixed in with it, but I believe from what I'm hearing that there are genuinely people being taken ill. So obviously the real question is what's going on here. There's about 4 or 5 of these cases, all obviously on different airlines, so you can't say it's the same food trolley going around. The information that I'm picking up is that basically the cabal or the shadow government or the Satan group, whatever you want to call them, who are under pressure as never before, are making threats by saying we have the capability to poison people, and the greatest way to spread a pandemic is by airplanes. So one passenger getting on in one country carrying a virus lands on another country and wallop, that country's got it. So these are threats designed to send a warning to those people who are trying to shine a bright light into the murky, dark corners and to try to bring out the truth. We've seen this actually in the last few weeks or months, where these strange, odd, one-off threats which don't seem to be related seem to take place and then disappear. I mean, one recently is the sudden burst of we're going to impeach the president, which after about 3 to 4 days just died a death. See this in the same light. It's an attempt to threaten or cajole because the noose is tightening around. There are numbers of indictments being bandied around in the 30, 40, 50,000 mark. The last I heard, officially, if you like, was 25,000. Certainly the 25,000, I'm very confident there's at least 25,000. If there's more, then there's more, but that's the number that I'm aware of. I've talked a little bit last time about GCHQ, and more information's coming out about these satellites that have been taken down. GCHQ ran a sort of a separate coding between itself and the National Security Agency and via the NSA to the CIA. Now, I want to clarify this, that GCHQ isn't non-operational. GCHQ hasn't been taken down, but the satellite linkage system that this encrypted coding was operating, that's no longer operational. So GCHQ on this particular network isn't able to communicate. It's communicating through the, can I call it, the right and proper way, the way it was designed to communicate with America and other countries. So it's still communicating, it's still doing its job, but let's say somebody 5,000 miles away from Great Britain can't now press a switch and use a network that even the American and the British government aren't aware of. So that's what I was trying to get at. That's what's been taken down. So GCHQ is still up and running. If we're talking about the poisoning, potential poisoning, then the Schiphol case is becoming more and more interesting. So we've had the British government come out and show photographs of two individuals that they claim are an arm of the Russian intelligence network, saying they're responsible for the poisoning. And then President Putin gets these two in front of the cameras, and it becomes quite a soap opera. It is interesting that both President Putin and President Trump are using the media to answer foreign governments, and this is totally unheard of. Normally what happens is that a sovereign government makes a request or statement, and then the other government gets its ambassador, and they go and they have a little cup of tea or whatever it is and have a chat, and so it goes on. But that's not how Trump or Putin are doing it. They're actually doing it via the media. And so Putin put these two guys up in front of Russia Today, and that made the British government really annoyed and angry. And they then released some more information saying that two separate Russian agents had been spying on a facility in Switzerland. It was a chemical laboratory where some of the elements of the alleged poisoning had been sent, and they were saying that the Russians were there to spy on that. So it's really a game of espionage which is out in the open, and we've never seen, even people who know more than I do in terms of the history of this country going back to the 1950s, who've researched that time, they never have seen a time when countries are engaging in diplomatic warfare through the media. It's unbelievable. So we're talking about Great Britain. Let's look at Theresa May. I don't think there are odds being taken, but one could go down to your local booking office or betting office, to the bookies, and see what the odds are for the Prime Minister of Great Britain, Theresa May, lasting until December. I think October and November are very difficult times for her, and there is I think a 35 to 45% chance that she will be removed as the British Prime Minister by her own party and replaced by another Conservative Prime Minister. So we're not talking an election directly, we're talking a coup within the leading party. And remember, they did it to Margaret Thatcher. They removed Margaret Thatcher and replaced Margaret Thatcher with an even bigger disaster with John Major. So let's see, 35-45% chance Theresa May, in my opinion, won't make it to December, but she's got a 55% chance of carrying on. Brexit, lots of people asking me about that, not through the questions, but just generally. Yes, Brexit will go ahead. There's absolutely no doubt about that. The question is, what strings are being tied on the underside? In other words, there will be a leaving of Europe, but what's actually going to happen in the small print? I don't mean the money and the trade. I'm talking about the laws and the way that the country is beholden to Strasbourg. So yes, leaving, but under this present government it seems they almost want to tie Britain as if we're a sort of a shadow entity to Europe. So we've got lots and lots going on. It's in some areas it's really ridiculous and it's funny, and in other areas it's really quite sad and quite desperate. And I did put our message out on the website regarding the hurricane that was hitting the East Coast. It's hit a little bit earlier. I know that a group that are based in the US who use sound waves, they have some most fantastic gongs, absolute brilliant, huge things, tuned to different frequencies, and I've worked with them and supported them in the past with different projects, and they certainly have been working to try to break up some frequency, because what we feel is that a lot of this weather is weather manipulation, there's a genuine hurricane, or there's a genuine windstorm, or there's a genuine tremor in the earth, but artificial technology is being used to exacerbate it or direct it. So what we're trying to do is to use tones or sounds and other ways as well to try and interfere with this artificial alteration. Nature is nature, but when people try to get on the back of that, that's where we get the problems. So, it's a war on many fronts, isn't it? And we get what we get from the news, which is 99% nonsense and 1% useful. So that's where we are. It's still a lot happening. It's I've said it before, it's changing every day, and it really is. So what I want to try and do is to get that one up. We seem to be back here again. It was only a week ago because we were out of kilter. So Becky and I had to do some extra shows to catch us up, and we're now caught up. So I'm not going to do the thank you this time. I want to go straight into the questions, and then we'll have caught up in terms of numbers of questions, and then that means when we do the next one, we'll have the standard thank you and questions. But if I devote more time now to the questions, we'll have caught up with where we should have been. So thank you. It's great to be here in the evening. Normally we do this during the day, but it's been so busy that I've had to do it in the evening. And you can see the lights flashing behind. That's just the cars through the window there. It's not a spaceship landing to take me away anywhere. So I do intend to be around for a bit longer. All right, Becky, lovely to take those questions then.
Okay, before we do, did you want to mention a little bit about our Connecting Consciousness meeting last Sunday on the 9th?
Yeah, I was going to do it towards the end, but
okay,
I suppose I can do it now. We had a really good meeting last Sunday in London, and it was at the Silverdine Centre, and it was a dedicated conference hall that was just about finished being built. Absolutely wonderful inside. I always thought when I saw it was a combination of a sort of an Indian culture and a British culture combined. We were really, really grateful because we were allowed to use the facilities at an incredibly reduced rate, and food was provided. So I only had to charge £2.50 to people to come in, and there was teas and coffees provided for that £2.50, and a proper meal. I mean, rice and vegetable curry and things like that. It was absolutely incredible. So grateful to the people, and they made it clear that one of the reasons that we got that was that they'd wanted to start off. We were the first group to use the conference hall, and we're a spiritual group, Connecting Consciousness, and so by starting off from a spiritual perspective, they believed that they were setting the foundations. Well, they're going to get lots of corporates in there, but by starting off like that, it set the tone. And it's an Indian group, Indian culture, so strong commitment to a spiritual base, and I'm incredibly grateful. We had something like 100 people, which was excellent. That was a really good, because it was a difficult time for people to come in. I did a small presentation, but it was really about working up the future for Connecting Consciousness. I want to turn Connecting Consciousness into a registered charity, and the first way to do that is to begin to engage with the membership in a more structured way. So we broke into 4 teams, 4 big tables, and then each coordinator, he or she took a group and flip chart paper and pens, worked through a set series of questions, and at the end of that, each group nominated someone to come up with a group leader, come up to the front, and then hold the flip chart paper up and then talk through what they'd worked up. And some of the groups mirrored the others, and some were remarkably different. And what I'm doing now is going through those flip chart papers. We're looking for aims and objectives. The funny thing was that I put up for grabs the name of Connecting Consciousness. That was a name that was created by myself and the then coordinator, and I thought, well, let's ask the membership what they want. And I was sitting obviously at the front while the groups were feeding back, thinking as the names were coming up, and thought, I really don't like that one. I really hope that the membership don't choose that one, because I had said that I wasn't going to operate like every other organisation. I wasn't going to be a corporate or a top-down group. Most organisations, what happens is that the leadership say, well, this is what we want. We have to consult with you, but you don't have any say. We've already decided what we want, but we'll just tick the boxes because we've consulted. And it's a bit like local government and a planning application. They want to build something. You know jolly well that they're going to build it because the law's been changed to stop you preventing that. But the law says they have to consult, so you pointlessly go, and I'm an ex-politician, and I know you pointlessly go to a meeting, turned up maybe large numbers of people generally anti this development. Everybody just sits there, well, we'll take your views into consideration, blah, blah, blah. And then of course nothing happens of it because this is the way it works. And I was determined not to have that. So literally, if nobody would have said the Mickey Mouse Club, but had they chosen something, I would have been honour bound to go with that, because if you say something you have to follow it through. And I'm really, really pleased, although I made a joke about it, that they wanted to keep the name Connecting Consciousness. We had a show of hands, we took a vote, and I made the joke about, well, I'm going back home now. I came here with the name and I'm going back with the same name. But privately, publicly, I'm really happy that we've kept the name Connecting Consciousness, because it says everything we need to do. So what I hope to have done was to set the way forward by consulting with the membership of Connecting Consciousness. They then direct the organisation as to how they feel it should go. We took a vote on that, and that into action, and those were the aims and objectives of what we're about. So this is the start of it. A big thank you then to everybody who came from abroad. People flew in, those who came from Scotland and Wales, and obviously different parts of England, who made the effort to travel in by public transport or to drive in. Thank you for giving up your time. I'm sorry it overran. We went well over the time, and a big sorry to the organisation who didn't throw us out. 3 hours, I think, after we said we would finish. So it was a lovely meeting. It was wonderful. The energy was great, and I was so happy to see people. So thank you, Rebecca. I've done it now, so that's great.
Yeah, and as
Good.
the UK coordinator, I really enjoyed facilitating one of the groups, and it was fantastic meeting some really interesting people, great experiences. And on my table we had a good Scottish contingency, so I'm hoping to form a Scottish CC. We have enough people.
Well, that's great. I mean,
Yeah.
what we are doing is putting some of the clips of that day up on YouTube. So there'll be a little clip of the small presentation I did, and then people were very kind to allow us to film some of the work they were doing in the groups. It's not going to be it'll only be 2 or 3 minutes, but it will, if it'll be linked onto the website. You can actually see members of Connecting Consciousness working through the tasks they were set. And that's the point. I want to be very open. I remember in 2015 when we did in Whitby, we did the Connecting Consciousness, and to my knowledge, I can't say I'm 100%, but to my knowledge, I think within our environment, our industry, I was the only person who stood up in 2015 at the beginning of that conference, which I'd organised with the help of the coordinators, and told everybody how much I was being charged for the room hire, how much I was being charged for the food. See, everybody knew how much they'd pay. I think it was about £15 we charged, I can't remember. And I think after we paid everything out, we had something like £120 left. And then I divided that up between the volunteers who'd helped. Now, a lot of organisations see conferences as a way of making money. And I wanted to really break the mould here. I wanted to actually tell the audience, well, you know how much you've paid, so I'm now going to tell you what the organisation's charging me. And then, you can work out from that how much money we've got left. Now, this was a different kettle of fish because I only charged £2.50. And we had a deal with these very spiritual people to have this whole conference room. So I didn't need to do it, but I will always do that. I will always say to people, this is what I charged you, this is what I've had to pay out, this is what's left, and this is what I've done with it. Because you're transparent. You've got nothing to fear. You've got nothing to worry about. There are some conferences that make thousands of pounds, and I'm not criticising it. That's up to them. It's entirely up to them. But Connecting Consciousness is an organisation that's designed to challenge and to lead the way and show, and we were going to be different. And that's one way of doing it. Anyway, thank you, and thank you to Rebecca. Thank you to Eddie. Thank you to Yoski, and thank you to Ranjit. Thank you to Andy and Kafka, who played key roles on the day, supporting me, whether that was doing the videoing, whether it was working in the groups, whether it was just handing out the flip chart paper. All of those individuals helped to make the day a great success, and I'm deeply grateful to you all. Thank you.
Okay, great, thanks. Now on to the questions. Jason says, hello Simon, if we had access to our past life memories, how would we cope if we remembered that we may have been a murderer in a past life, for example?
That's a fantastic question. I've never been asked that before. I've been asked questions about past memories, but not in that context. There are many people who get back flashbacks, even just a little snippet or something's bigger. There are people who've been tortured, through MK Ultra or satanic, and they get their memories back. How do they cope with that? The important thing is that knowledge is power, and you have to be in a position yourself to deal with these memories. Generally what happens is that the subconscious does not release the memories to the conscious until the body politic decides that it's balanced enough to cope with it. Occasionally what happens is, for some reason, the individual's triggered, or there's some sort of breakthrough, and the memories come through before the conscious mind is ready to deal with that. And that's where the problems occur. Now, if a person incarnated on this planet and they had their full memory, and they then had a memory of, taking part in some sacrifice in an Inca or an Aztec temple or the Great Pyramid itself, that individual could begin to have a desperate expression of themselves. But the point, I think, is that we have to understand that this is a journey that we all travel on through many lifetimes, and we are the person we are today because of what we've been. Now, I often, when I'm chatting to my clients, say there are lots of people out there who they say they're very good people. They've always been good people. I'm not going to be rude, but the fluffy white clouds and the fluffy sheep and Archangel Michael, and I always say to them, that's really good, but what are you frightened of? Because Source created positive and negative, black and white, yin and yang, and the real battle, I think, is to incarnate in one energy field and then, out of a conscious choice, to move to a more lighter energy field. So if you have a memory as somebody who was a murderer, but today you're not, your focus must be that you have changed and evolved, and you've understood. Somebody who hadn't would still be a murderer. How would people cope? I think we would, if this started to happen, we'd have to have a protocol that everyone could access for support. But remember that if you had a memory and you got a memory of being a murderer, you would also get memories of when you've done good things. In the vast majority of cases, people might do something bad 5,000 years ago, but something really good 2,000 years ago. So it would be about balancing and identifying. And if a person isn't making the evolutionary change they would like to make, then instead of getting into a desperate state about it, then we say, right, okay, this is the trajectory. How do we pull us out of that trajectory? And if we had these conscious memories, then the government and the world we lived in would be totally different. They would be facilities available, paid for, where people could go and receive that assistance and help to understand who they were and to advance themselves. So in the same way as we might expect every town or city to have a public library, there really should be a centre that allows people to have that support and assistance that's not contained in a bottle with a screw top that contains tablets. In other words, the way forward for humanity is not necessarily a bottle containing tablets. It is a much more holistic energy approach. It's a really good question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Samantha says, Dear Simon, because of my isolated and abused upbringing, I blamed my social inadequacies for my inability to make friends. This last year I got a job and realised I don't have problems speaking to people. As long as conversations stay on a surface level, people really like me. It's hard to explain, but it seems like when a co-worker and I just start developing a deeper connection, it's like I see or feel something pass into them, something in their eyes change, and they switch back to keeping me at arm's length. I've spoken with you and no, I'm not possessed, but I don't believe everyone I've seen... But I don't believe everyone I've seen this happen with can all be possessed either. What's going on? Thanks.
Okay. I haven't been given the person's name quite rightly. We don't want to put that out, so I can't remember it. But the person says they've had a chat with me and I scanned them and didn't detect any demonic possession. It could be a whole host of reasons. If a person has a real memory of trauma, and that individual has done a lot of work on his or herself, and you've given the key there when you've talked about everything's fine when you talk superficially. I think what's happening, and I can only put this forward, when you're superficially talking, you're saying things the other person expects, and it's all on the superficial level, the 3D level, everything's fine. When something becomes a bit more meaningful, then you are drawing on your personal experience and you are showing that you have a greater depth and understanding of the world. Now that will turn off a 3D person. A person likes to have stuff that they're not challenged, they like to have it just on the paper surface. They don't want to have to think, they don't want to have to question, they want to go and see and fill their head full of something funny or exciting that doesn't really make them look at themselves. Now, if you've been through what you've been through, as you've intimated here, you will talk with much more profound passion. You will be able to understand and express the world in a way that such another person who's not on that learning journey, they may be on a journey but they're not on a learning journey, then they're thinking, oh God, what's this about? Oh, I don't want to have to think about this. So it doesn't mean all these people are possessed. What it means is that your spirituality is shining through and you are talking to people who are not yet on a spiritual journey, and it's just too much for them. Remember what I say to my clients, that 75%, in my own opinion, of the people on this planet are Earth humans. Hamburgers, TV, more hamburgers, TV, etc. 25% are on a different journey, but that doesn't mean that all 25 are like, X, Y, and Z. Within that 25%, there may only be 0.5% like you. What I'm saying is there are 25% who are seeking and trying to break free, or have broken free and are trying to cement that freedom. So when we are in a room, whatever that will be, imagine that 3/4 of the room aren't even going to be able to understand you. They're not going to connect with you. You're just too much for them, unless you keep it on a superficial level. The weather, pets, animals, television, cinema, fashion, clothes, YouTube, you got the picture. You talk about anything else, like I think the government's trying to rip us off here. People will nod with that because that's very fashionable. People can go with that. But if you come on and think a little bit about, well, something like, you think that fluoride actually isn't very good for us, immediately the face completely glazes over, because why would a government put fluoride in water and toothpaste if it was poisonous? You must be mad. Of course, fluoride is good for us. It's really good for our teeth, isn't it? And then when you say to them, do you know actually that in the camps during the Third Reich, Buchenwald, Auschwitz, and many of the other camps, that fluoride was added to the water of the prisoners? Was that because Adolf Hitler and his cronies was wanting to look after the teeth of all of the prisoners? I mean, we know he stole the gold out of their teeth, but was it because he cared about the oral hygiene of his prisoners? Or was it because if you put fluoride to water, it actually dumbs down the individuals? And when you start giving facts to this, people can't cope with it, and they'll just make an excuse and move away. So don't be bothered about it. That's their choice. They have the problem, not you. Great, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Sammy says, and this is quite a long question with different parts, but it's all connected.
Right.
Dear Simon, can you give more information on spiritless or soulless humans? I thought the soul is what kept the structural integrity of the physical body together. Am I wrong? In a previous show you explained that a grey alien without a soul responding to the question, what are these people doing here? With the answer, they are standing.
They were sitting.
Oh, or sitting, okay.
That's all right.
If this is how a human without a soul would speak to others, then wouldn't we notice them right away? Are there whole soulless humans walking around who are being controlled by negative entities or aliens, like remote control robots? And lastly, is it possible for a human soul to leave the body and something else like a jinn take its place?
Right.
Thank you.
There's three questions there. Yeah. Can we just do the first one? Because you know what I'm like. I can't.
Yeah.
First bit was,
can you give more information on spiritless or soulless humans?
A clone can actually contain a soul, or a clone can have no soul in it. A biological human can be without a soul but needs some form of control element. It's really difficult to try to split the difference between a clone and what I would call a biological human. You'll see people similarly like this that have been taken over by AI. I asked Andy to put a clip on the website today. Elon Musk was interviewed and he was talking about basically the human race is finished. AI is going to take over everything, and he's warned people this, that and the other. And then when the interview develops, you can see actually he's very positive for AI and seems to think it's a great thing to be taken over. Now, what I'd like you to do, if you get 5 minutes, is look at that interview. It's only a short interview, but watch that. Look at the way he speaks. You'll find that individuals who have been affected either through mind control, through AI takeover, or don't have a soul, will they can't really string too many sentences together. They are short, sharp data information pieces, and I'm saying that deliberately. So they will just come forward with a few sentences or one sentence, and there'll be a prolonged gap. Then there'll be another sentence and a prolonged gap. Now these people also will just change track halfway through, and it'll be quite inappropriate, or they'll laugh at a point where they're not supposed to laugh because they don't have the human divine connection. Therefore everything is on a learning. The way they're running is trying to learn and understand and projecting as they think they should project. So it's very difficult for I call an ordinary person. How can humans be ordinary? But you know what I mean. For an ordinary person to tell the difference between a clone and a person that's not got a soul in them. So there are quite a few out there. They're in their hundreds, they're not in their thousands, and you may meet at least one in your lifetime, and these people just give you the creeps. That's the way to describe it, really. What was the middle part, please?
Well, the middle part is if this is how a human without a soul would speak to others, then wouldn't we notice them right away?
Oh, I think we do notice them. I think you'll notice people as being very odd, very strange, awkward, very, very difficult. Some are better at hiding it than others. You're not, as a system, going to put your key personalities up there in the limelight who have this deficit, because they will be picked up immediately. You will have them in your key industries where they don't meet the general public, where they just meet other members of the group who are ordinary people, but of course are not going to go and report anything. Occasionally one of these people is out in the public, interviewed or gets seen, and it becomes fairly obvious. Now, you've got a spectrum from 0 to 6 or 0 to 12, and the further up the spectrum they are, then the more obvious something wrong is. And the final part, Becky, please.
The final part is, lastly, is it possible for a human soul to leave the body and something else like a jinn take its place?
It's a really interesting no, because the jinn will want to share the body with the human soul. That's the whole point of this. I have to clarify this, because I always use the word black magician, but the reality is, of course, that just means hidden magic. Occult means hidden, and the New Age and the way we are today, we think of black magic as evil magic, and that's actually not accurate. This comes from the Middle Ages. If you're a black magician, then you are an occult magician, and you are practicing magic that's hidden. A good man or good woman produces good magic. A bad man or a bad woman produces bad magic, evil magic. So a evil magician, maybe that's the term I've got to use, an evil magician can't do much without a demon living within his body. So he has the human soul and the demons with him. Now what you're talking about is when a soul is removed and the demon possesses. That's very, very rare. Generally, the more interesting one is through channeling, where a spirit enters the person, and occasionally the soul of that individual goes, and then that human body can actually shapeshift. And it's more common through channeling than it is through anything else. But in most cases, the human soul wouldn't want to leave the body. That's its home. Why would it go? But there are very rare occasions where it will go, something else will be in, and then it will come back. That's usually through an agreement. Imagine student swapping. So you get these exchange students. So someone from France comes to Britain, and someone from Britain goes to France. Well, imagine there's more times than you'd think this exchange within human body. A soul will leave a body, go into another body. They'll just do a swap to experience what it's like, or to not just experience what it's like in another dimension or another body, but to have a role to play. And there are a number of books, not many, but some books where a human has been, I can't say abducted, but a human has gone from this world, and the soul has been their soul has been placed into a viable body within that dimension, because the human body won't really last in a higher dimension as it stands. And that has the time, and then the soul is taken out of that body and put back into their body. So we don't just think of it as an evil takeover. There are occasions where this is an agreement for a soul to leave a body to experience in a way that it could normally not, source wouldn't directly allow it to. So some really good questions we're getting today. Thank you.
If I can just sort of ask my own question because I'm very curious about this. It's my understanding that souls don't fully leave body unless a person has either, died, passed away, and the soul's moved on, or unless there's an agreement and a proper soul swap where one soul's gone and another one steps in. But if someone is asleep, you can the soul will still be connected. Also, if someone's really drunk, and perhaps their body can be taken over by some kind of demonic entity, which is sort of making the body move and sort of taking over control of the body for a while that person's drunk. But their soul is still connected to the body, but is not in control of the body.
There are 2 points there. I'll take the last one first. That's no different from a jinn being inside a magician.
Okay.
If someone's alcohol is different from hallucinatory drugs. Mm-hmm. Someone is so drunk to that point, then yes, in some circumstances, the evil force can come in and it shares the body. Mm-hmm. When you are remote viewing or astral traveling, mm-hmm. it is possible for your soul to leave your body but be connected by a thin cord, mm-hmm. which connects your consciousness, your energy body, your etheric body, to your physical body. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about where you're not just going up to the room or going to one dimension to look back down on yourself or to experience down. You have a written agreement that you will physically leave your body and you will go into another body which is not necessarily humanoid, uh-huh. and then that soul from that body, that's what I meant by this exchange student, takes over your body. So this being from its dimension has a life in your body and you have it, and then you can swap back. But
so the whole soul goes with no cord attachment to the original body? Correct,
because the agreement is that it's only temporary.
Okay.
It's only temporary. Now, when you are doing astral travelling, the reason that there's a cord is because there's no, other than source or yourself, there's no agreement or protection here. Mm-hmm. So it's like going into a labyrinth mm-hmm. and having a great big ball of string. And then you tie the ball of string around one end and you walk down the labyrinth and you unroll your string so that if something really bad happens, you can find your way back through your string. And this is what this thread is. It's to find your way back to your body if something happens. And I remember I did a remote view of the underground facilities under Capitol Hill some years ago. And I was jumped by a very, very unhappy grey, and it was like whoosh, zip, straight back into my body because I had to get out of there very quickly because I'd been detected. This was a number of years ago, and it's like a piece of elastic slapping, and you're slipping, and you're pulled straight back. Mm-hmm. But what I'm referring to here is where advanced technological entities are managing the process. And you don't need that thread because it's there's a third party involved other than source. Thank you. Good question.
Okay, thanks. Tom says, Simon, thank you for all that you do. Recently, the FBI shut down an observatory in New Mexico along with a post office. Then there were 6 other sites shut down as well. Within a day or so, there was a lady who apparently photographed an armada of ships by the sun. What can you tell us about this, and why the post office?
I don't know a great deal about it. What I'm aware of is that the observatories were not controlled. Most observatories, all the staff in the observatories are professional men and women, and they're all part of. And I couldn't even tell you what it is, but they're all part of a group. Just as like all doctors are part of the medical association, etc. And that's how you control on this planet professionals, because they are, by law, they have to be registered with a particular body. So teachers have to be with a body, and police officers and doctors and etc. And the way you control those individuals is through that body. You say, here's your group of ethics, and if you break the ethics as we decide, then the body will throw you out, and if you're thrown out, you can no longer practice, and therefore you can't have a job. So that's how they control it. So there have been a number of instances now where these observatories are getting pretty spooked by having seen on a regular basis a number of unusual happenings, and are beginning to pass information outside of the normal channels. That's what I've been told. The post office was that there was in a big city, you rarely know anybody. So you go to the post office, you're not going to know anyone. But in South American countries and other countries, your uncle might work there, or your auntie works there, or it's close. You really know people. And there are some villages in Britain that are still like that, and there must be some small towns in the US that are still like that. Now, if you got that communication system that's not relying on the telephone or the internet, you can pass information, and post office is a great way to pass information that can't be electronically intercepted. And so one of the focal hubs in many places in Great Britain, it used to be the pub. Well, that's all nearly died a death now, but in many countries it is the post office. So what I am aware of, and I don't know the full story, but what I am aware of is that there were many sightings. The people operating this equipment felt they had to get the story out. The officialdom wasn't going to let that happen, and as a result of that, they were then looking for alternative ways to get the information out. As to who was behind, I didn't even know it was the FBI. I didn't know it was the FBI that had closed them down. All I know is that somebody had got in there and had said that they had to sort of put a stop to it. Even people who want disclosure generally want disclosure in a controlled way. If you are operating a very advanced telescope, you also might have some eavesdropping equipment, and you might have messages. You might be receiving messages, and so the last thing that anybody wants who's got a plan to release information gradually doesn't want Fred blurting out that he's had this information. So that's a little I know about it. So I understand it's true and genuine has happened, and that's the best I can do at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Tony says, "Dear Simon, thanks for all that you do. Can you expand on the potential of music and vibration and intention during pregnancy? The book Remembrance intrigued me with the Keresh and their birthing chambers. Much love, Tony."
I haven't read the book, but I think I can probably take a bit of an answer of this. The system that we have that's grown up over the last 50, 60, 70 years looks on people as a necessary evil. Using the word evil, I don't mean it like that, but they look on it as a necessary problem. Their job exists to provide a service to the people. Their job is to take as much money off us as they can, but they'd love their job if we didn't exist. So let's look at the hospitals. The hospitals exist not to make our lives easier, but to make the machinery, the process easier. So when looking at giving birth, they want to run it as if you were making motor cars. They want to run it, we call it as a conveyor belt, don't we? Because it works their way. If they were to turn around and say, what's best for you, they are not A, of the mindset, and B, of the instruction. The bosses haven't instructed them, and C, they haven't had the resources put through. So they can't say what's right for you. It's about connecting consciousness. I said to my membership, what do you want to do? That's what I was trying to say. What organization ever really turns around to its membership or its customers and says, what do you want? Because if you ask people what they want and they tell you and you can't deliver that, you're in trouble. So organizations generally don't ask people what they want, they just tell them what they're going to get. So the birthing system in the Western world is traumatic. Now, I'm not saying it's deliberately designed to traumatize babies when they're born. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that the system that we have for birthing and the way it is simply because hospitals are designed like factories. They're designed to process the job in hand. If you're using sound and water, then I can see the advantage of it, providing the tones you're using are in the same way as we would use pure geometry, as long as your tones are of the frequency that is as pure to source as you can get. So none of this nonsense that since the latter part of the Middle Ages have been altered. If you have a way of finding out what this source resonance pure tones are and you use them, but then you've got to be very careful how you construct them, because music is a message. So you've got to maybe get spiritual people and musicians in to create a set tune for birthing to that is one of hope, one of love, one of support, one that welcomes the child and promises that you will do what you can to protect the child. Because remember that music carries a story, not just in the words, but it can be written in such a way as to be very calming and very reassuring. So this is what I'm saying. This is what needs to happen right across the board. Everything has been designed for the organization and the running of the organization. It is not designed for the benefit of people. People are purely there. I have a joke actually, sort of say, the organizations exist to take as much money off us as they can, as quickly as they can, for as long as they can, for as cheaply as they can. So that's the whole protocol, isn't it? And I don't often get really angry, but I certainly get angry when you see these adverts and the organization says, we're here to help you. No, you're not. You're here to take the money off me. You don't really care about me. We care about you. We care about this. No, you don't. You care about the profit. You care about the money. And that's not me being cynical or angry. It's just the absolute reality of it. And it's, why don't they just be honest and say, frankly, we don't give a damn about any of you. We just want you to buy our products. And I've talked about before that, you have a washing machine and you have clothes. And I just put about that much in and my clothes are fine. But if you read the packets, it says put this much in. If I was a greedy shareholder of some of these big corporations, yeah, I'd want you putting in that. In fact, I'd want you putting double in, because I want you coming back and buying another of my wonderful soap powder that stinks to hell because it's got terrible artificial smells in it. Go back to the days of Model T Ford, Mr. Ford. The Ford motor car was a fantastic machine, and the problem was that it wasn't breaking down. It was really well made. The parts and metal were really thick. It was really done. And Mr. Ford himself said, and I don't know the name, but said to his chief engineer, this isn't any good. These cars aren't breaking down. I want you to go around all the breakers' yards. This is a true story. I want you to go around all the breakers' yards and look at all of this and see what is the fault of these cars and what bits don't break. Basically, because I want these cars to have a lifespan of 10 years or 20 years. And so his chief engineer came back and said, look, if we de-engineer, I don't know what the word is, if we de-engineer this part, and he said we make it 1/8 of an inch thinner, then this part will break down. And right back then, they were looking at that. You look at a light bulb. Think about a light bulb you put in your house. Think how long it lasts. It doesn't last very long. But you put a light bulb in your motor car. That lasts a very long time, because you have made a big outlay for your motor car. Hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars, or pounds. And therefore, the argument is you've given us all this money for a motor car, therefore we'll give you a light bulb that will last 12 months. But when you go to the store to buy a light bulb for the kitchen, it might last 3 months. because it is engineered so that it doesn't last. And that's the point. So many of our household products could actually last much, much longer, but that would mean we wouldn't go back and buy them. It would mean that the people who work in those shops wouldn't have the jobs. It would mean that the shareholders couldn't have their foreign holidays. And so empires have been created to exist on a set level of profit. And if, say, Connecting Consciousness came along and said, well, we want to make changes to the world, which means you've got to change your business model, that would mean these empires having to shrink their operation. And some of these interesting things, before I finish, are, let's say, chocolate. I like chocolate, but you might get the chief medical officer saying sugar's bad for you or chocolate's bad for you. Those corporations immediately come down like a ton of bricks, because they want you to buy your chocolate bars, they want you to buy this sugar, and they don't want the health guy saying it's bad. The only time, in my knowledge, they really won an argument was on smoking, and they had to do it because the empirical evidence was massive. They just couldn't hide it anymore. So the agreement was, look, we'll reduce in the westernized countries because the health bill is millions, billions, and governments were saying, look, we're getting tax on these cigarettes, but the amount of money we're spending on people who are developing diseases is outstripping the tax you're giving us. That's the reality. That's why they put a stop on it. So what do? Go to the third world countries where there is no rules, and they can just do what they want. So don't believe for 1 minute that they stop. What they do is they stop in one location and they move to another location. So it's a really important part, because when you create an empire based on a profit base, anything that seeks to reduce that profit base is for hammer and tongs. But this is how we have to go in the future. We have to understand, I believe, that the profit that we accept is wrong. Anyway, that's good. Please go on.
Okay. You went on to lots of different examples, but getting back to the birth one, I think you were sort of highlighting that perhaps the organisation behind might be in for a profit, but the actual, I firmly believe, having worked with midwives for about 10 years as a birth supporter and worked with birthing mothers and parents, that the people who work with the birthing mums do it because they do it for, it's a vocation, it's a passion. And music is another passion of mine, and I think that playing music that is in the older tone, where middle A is 432 hertz rather than 440 or 442. That music is more in connection with this earth, is more in harmony with humans. So that's my little bit that I can add to that, because there are two topics I'm actually very passionate about. Okay,
thank you. Okay. I'm trying not to move my chair, but I do have to move my chair, and there creaks and groans, and I know that it puts you off, and I'm really sorry. That's why I was very clear, and I said the corporations.
Yeah.
Let's get it clear. the man or woman who stands in the road to get the kids across safely the road to the school, they're not earning thousands of pounds or thousands of dollars. They do it because actually they've got a commitment to the community. And I've always made it clear that when you go into a bank, you can't be cross with the people behind the counter, because they're just like you and I. They're not the ones making all the massive profits. They're not the ones doing multi-million deals and losing money or gaining money. So the point I'm saying is that it is the structure, it's the corporations, and it's the organizations. It's not necessarily the individuals. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Right. It's time to present a different cat. As you notice, there's nobody sitting on the table. It's because it's late at night and they have their own spots. This is a cat that's been ill, but is responding really well to some medicine. This is Stormbjorn. Hello, gorgeous. Come and say hello. You've seen Ragnarok. This one is a little different. He's not black. He's what's called a smoke. So he's actually got white part of him, but he's really wriggly at the moment. There we go. See his tummy there? So it's not actually black. So he's really good. He's about 5 months old. So he hopefully will become another star of the show if he wishes to be involved, and maybe learn from the others to sit quietly and not run around. Can't present the dog to you tonight because it's too late, but we will present the dog to you. Won't be perhaps just yet, but certainly when the dog wakes up, then the dog does bark, and that's part of life, I think. Right, are we ready for one more question?
Finish it off now. Okay. This is from Dominique from Poland. Hi Simon, lots of love and light for you and your team. Just as everyone has their unique fingerprint or scent, everyone has their unique energy signature. After spending some time with a person, you can easily recognise it and associate it with a specific person. Throughout the years, I could feel, more or less often, other people's energy even when I was all alone. It's not packed with positive or negative energy. It's like smelling someone's scent out of nowhere without any additional messages added to it. It just is. Usually it's not disruptive and I kind of get used to it, but I never really got to know why it happens and what does it mean. Do you have any insights on that?
Well, most people can't do that. When individuals become psychic, remember there's a big difference between being psychic and spiritual. When a person becomes psychic, they can have access to either a very narrow band of potential or a very wide band of potential. And some people can see the matrix, some people are very gifted with tarot cards or astrology, some people can heal, and some people can do what you're doing. I just think you should understand that you have a specific gift or skill. The question is how you use that. Everybody has their own electronic signature, just as you said, like a fingerprint. The aliens, for want of a better word, and higher dimensions don't bother with fingerprints, but they do exactly what you do. They will identify an individual by his or her brain pattern or soul frequency. It's really important to understand that there are two differences: there's brain pattern and soul frequency. Remember that there is a technology on this planet to identify people by your brain waves, and I never understood why you have to go into a bunker and they have a retina scanner or a palm print scanner when the technology is there for a brainwave scanner. Anyway, maybe I guess because you can send it to corporations because they can put them all in their airports or their passport projects, etc., etc. So you have a skill which is relying on a psychic capability to read, and as you said quite rightly, it's neither right nor wrong, black nor white. It's just a frequency that you identify, but you would have to meet the person, match their physical face to that signature, because we're in a 3D world. Whereas in the higher dimensions you don't need to do that. You're already on record, so an individual would already be on record, so they would just pinpoint that frequency on Earth, and they wouldn't even have to come and look at your face and check to see if that was you. They would just know it was you. Whereas when we're on a 3D planet and we're still in a 3D body, we would have to match the 3D face to start with, and then we would know that person. So you have a gift, and I say it's no different. I mean, it's the gift you have is different, but it's no different from someone who can do healing or using tarot cards or something like that. What we really want is one day all these groups to come together so we can have this all around positive projection of energy. So at the moment we're all split up, aren't we? So Joy can heal, but she's over in Sacramento. Fred can see the future and he's over in New Zealand, etc., etc. Well, we do need to actually work together. Thank you, and we're going to call it a day on that one. It's been some really, really powerful questions. I seem to always say the questions are great, but I think today they were really, really good.
Yeah, they're quite advanced.
Yeah, I think they were, and I hope that I really hope that the answers I've given will set you thinking and set you developing. So I want to thank everyone, and remember, I haven't done the thank you for those of you who've financially supported me, but I'll be doing that next week because we're back on track then, and I'll mention everybody then. So thank you ever so much. Our hearts go out, of course, to the east coast of the US. We've done, and many groups have done what they can to try to reduce the level of that storm. We just keep an eye on things, and I look forward to talking to you all soon. So take care. Thank you.